Welcome back to Liz's Artisan Shop, the place where I show you how I make my body products, woodworking projects, and resin art. I have some craft fairs coming up, so I'm down here in my garage, getting ready to do some cutting, gluing, and sanding. To start my edge grain cutting board, I'm beginning with maple. I'm cutting this down to 20 and 15-inch size boards. That way I can use them for various projects. And then I move on to cherry and walnut, and then the oh so wonderful purple heart, which is the first time I'm using it, so I'm really excited. From there, I'm ripping those pieces to about 1.5 inches on my table saw. I'm using my brand new gripper push block. I freaking love this thing. I should have got it months ago. It makes ripping pieces so much easier. All right, it's been a few hours. I have sawdust in places that I won't mention, and I'm ready to glue these bad boys up. So here we go. I like to use Titebond 3. It's waterproof and safe for indirect food contact. I like to pour it into an empty condiment jar, just makes it easier to distribute, and it's way easier than picking up a gallon-sized jar of glue. And I put probably way too much glue on my pieces because I'm so paranoid that I'm not going to have enough and I'm going to have splits and places where the board's weak. So it's a huge mess. And no matter how many times I do this, it's always a huge mess. So just know that going into this project, it's going to be a lot of glue everywhere. And so I tape down my clamps with painter's tape and I put wax paper underneath just so that as it gets everywhere, it's easier to clean up. Once everything's glued up with tons and tons of glue, then I adjust my clamps so that I make sure that it's an even amount on each side. I like to count the notches on top there just to make sure I have each clamp in its right position. And you want to not force these clamps so tight that all the glue comes out of your seams. You kind of want a happy balance between seeing the glue bead all the way across and having a good firm grip, but not so much that it's just totally expelling all your glue. And now starts the treacherous task of cleaning the glue off so that you don't have to sand off a bunch of glue at the end. And it takes a long time and it's sticky and gooey and I hate it, but there's no way around it, so just gotta deal. I like to use wax paper so that my clamps don't stick to my cutting board. After a very long day, I had a surprise visitor and I took it as a sign that I would be successful in life. After my board sat overnight, it's time to take the clamps off, and I usually need a mallet just to get it started, and then they usually loosen. And because there was glue left on the cutting board, I went ahead and grabbed some 60 grit, and I'm just going to take some light passes over the cutting board just to get a nice clean surface before I begin to plane it. I just do this to save my blades and create a nice even surface to work with. And then I take it through some light passes until I get all the glue off and the wood is even. And then after a few passes, maybe just a quarter to a third turn with that wheel, I go ahead and flip it over and continue. Then back to my miter saw to take a few passes on the sides to get it squared up. My goal is always to have that paper thin cut so that I preserve as much of the wood as possible. And then using my Makita router to go along the sides, I use a 25/64 inch chamfer bit. I'll put a link in the description box. And now I'm ready to sand. So I'm just marking my boards up with pencil so I know how much I've sanded off, and I'm not taking too much off the boards. I'm going to start with 150 grit and do both sides and the edges. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and hit it with some water to lift the grain. and then I'll go back with 150 grit after that, and then I will finish with 220. I found a small hole while I was sanding the side, so I decided to grab some medium CA glue and accelerator. I'll put a link in the description for those products as well. I used 80 grit over that section and then went back to the 150 grit to continue my sanding. After I was done sanding, I covered the board in mineral oil and let it soak in overnight. This is a wax mixture that I made up of beeswax, carnauba wax, and mineral oil. I'm playing around with the recipe, so once I have it dialed in, I'll go ahead and post a video of how I made it. And then I just take mineral oil to kind of work the wax into the board, and I do this a few times, letting it sit a few hours so it can soak in. Please like and subscribe to watch other videos like these. Thanks for watching.